My name is Pierce. Detective Arthur Pierce. Some call me obsessed. Others say I've stared into the abyss too long, and it stared back. I say this: when you've seen what I've seen, when you've stood where light refuses to reach, you either learn to keep walking, or you don't come back at all. Most of my cases come in quietly. A missing person, an unpaid debt, a partner's betrayal. But this one? It didn't walk in. It bled through. It started with an envelope. No return address. No postage. Just placed on the floor of my office like it had grown there overnight. Old paper, edges curled like dying leaves. The ink on the front? A deep, dried maroon. Almost black. Detective Pierce. That was all it said. Inside, a note. One sentence. Shaky handwriting like it had been written mid-tremor. She's still singing, and the earth won't let her go. Beneath the note, folded with precision, was a map. Hand-drawn, not recent. Roads no longer paved. Landmarks erased by time. But at the center, circled in smudged graphite, Dunmere Mine. I hadn't heard that name in years. Dunmere was a mining village up north, long abandoned after a collapse in 1962. According to the official reports, the mine caved in during a night shift. 32 men went down. None came up. The town never recovered. Families moved out. Businesses vanished. Eventually, Dunmere became a ghost, swallowed by moss and fog. I had no business going there. But something about the note, the way the ink bled into the paper, the silence in my office when I read it, it felt like something was pulling me. Something old. The next morning, I packed a flashlight, 3 flares, my recorder, and the revolver I hadn't touched in 6 months. I left a note on my desk in case something went wrong. Not that anyone would read it. I've never been big on company. Dunmere wasn't on most maps anymore. I followed winding roads through dying trees and mist that seemed to cling to the windshield like it wanted in. The deeper I went, the quieter the world became. No birds. No insects. Not even the crunch of gravel beneath the tires. Just fog, endless and patient. By noon, I reached the outskirts. The town was exactly as forgotten as I'd imagined. Crooked street signs, buildings half-eaten by moss and time. A church missing its steeple. A schoolhouse with broken windows and desks still inside. Like the children had simply vanished mid-lesson. But there were no bodies. No signs of panic, just absence. I parked near what looked like an old general store. The air was heavy, thick like soup. Each step felt louder than it should have. My recorder, which I'd clipped to my coat, picked up nothing but a faint hiss. I followed the map through the heart of town, past a rusted water tower, past an old railway crossing now devoured by ivy. The mine entrance wasn't hard to find. It sat at the end of a gravel path, surrounded by trees leaning inward like they wanted to whisper secrets to each other. The wooden beams marking the entrance were blackened by fire. The mine itself, sealed with rusted gates, had been pried open. Not recently, but not long ago either. And nailed to the left beam, barely hanging by one nail, was a faded photograph. A girl, maybe 10, in a school uniform. Handwritten on the back. Clara, 1962. She never came back. I pocketed it without thinking. The light dimmed as I stepped forward. The air turned cold, damp. I lit a flare. The world turned red. Inside, the mine smelled of wet stone and rot. I counted each step, instinctually, as I descended. 20, 40, 60. The flare crackled in my hand, casting shadows that danced just out of reach. The deeper I went, the more the walls seemed to close in. Old tracks for carts ran beneath my feet, bent and warped. And then, the singing. Faint. Almost inaudible. A child's voice, humming a tune. No words. Just melody, soft, lilting, wrong. I froze. The hairs on my neck stood up. My hand reached for my revolver. Even though I knew bullets wouldn't mean much down here, I pressed on. As I turned a corner, the flare flickered. For a moment, I saw something move, a shadow that ducked into the tunnel ahead. I called out, but my voice came back twisted, echoed strangely. Hello? Oh, lo, oh. I turned on the recorder. Nothing but static. I kept walking, one hand on the wall, the other holding the flare. The humming continued, sometimes near, sometimes distant, sometimes above me. And then I saw it, an old lantern, lying on its side. still warm, recently used. I crouched beside it, next to it shoe prints. Small, bare feet, pressed into the damp earth, leading deeper. The air grew colder. My breath turned to fog. Further in, the tunnel widened into a cavern. I stepped out slowly, flare raised high. In the center of the chamber was an old rocking horse, wooden, hand-carved, unmoving. Around it, small objects, a child's shoe, a porcelain doll's head, cracked and eyeless, and written on the cavern wall, in something thick and dark, "She never stopped singing." I stared at it for a long time, my breath shallow. Then I heard it again, the voice. This time, closer, clearer. A girl, humming that same unnatural tune. I turned. Behind me, deeper in the tunnel, something ran past. Not walked. Not staggered. Ran. I raised my revolver, shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the echo. And then, silence. Not the kind you hear. The kind you feel. Like the world itself forgot how to speak. My flare sputtered, then died. I was alone in the dark. Darkness in a mine is not just absence of light. It's a weight. A presence. Something that presses against your skin and whispers in your ears, even when nothing's there. I stood motionless. My flare had died, and with it, the last anchor to the world above. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. Not my breath, not my heartbeat, not even the hiss of the air. Just silence so loud it roared. I flicked on my flashlight. The beam cut through the dark like a scalpel. The cavern where I'd seen the writing, "She never stopped singing," looked even worse under the pale electric light. The walls were jagged, the floor uneven. The rocking horse was still in the center, unmoved. But something had changed. The footprints. Before, there'd only been a few small ones, leading deeper. Now, there were more. Fresh. Barefoot. And not just small ones, larger ones. Adult-sized. Twisted. As though whoever made them limped or dragged a foot. The impressions looked wet, like the ground itself had bled to let them pass. I followed them. The tunnel narrowed again. My breath echoed ahead of me, rebounding in ways that made it sound like someone was breathing right behind me. I stopped, turned, checked. Nothing. Then humming. Close. Right ear. Clear. I spun around, flashlight beam jittering. Still no one. But this time the tune had changed. Slower now. Almost mournful. Like a lullaby played in reverse. Then the voice. A child's voice, but not singing. "She said you'd come?" The words came from nowhere. No direction. Not a whisper, not a scream. Just a statement, dropped into my mind like a stone into water. I spoke without thinking. "Who said?" Silence again. I kept walking. Left foot. Right. The tunnel twisted like a serpent. I began to notice carvings on the walls. Symbols at first, then crude drawings. Faces without mouths. Stick figures standing over pits. Children with hollow eyes. The footprints continued. Eventually, I reached another chamber. This one larger than the first. Someone had tried to turn it into something domestic. There was a rusted bed frame with no mattress. A desk. A broken mirror hanging on the stone wall, reflecting a room that somehow looked different than the one I was standing in. In the corner, a chair, rocking gently, and sitting in it, facing the wall, was a figure. A girl. Pale dress, hair matted and long, feet dangling just above the floor. She was humming. I raised the flashlight slowly, afraid to make noise, afraid not to. "Clara?" The humming stopped. She didn't move. I took a step closer. The beam of my flashlight flickered again. Battery dying. "Clara, my name is Arthur Pierce. I'm a detective. I'm here to help." She raised a hand, thin, trembling, pointed toward the wall. I followed her gesture. There, scribbled in charcoal and something darker, maybe blood, were dozens of names, some crossed out, others underlined. Among them, Clara Redmond. Under it, a date, October 14th, 1962. I reached into my coat, pulled out the photo I'd found outside the mine. "Is this you?" She didn't respond, but the mirror behind her did. In the reflection, Clara was no longer seated. She stood behind me, eyes black as void, mouth stitched shut with thread, her arms outstretched, as if begging or warning. I spun. The chair was empty. The room was empty. The mirror was shattered. Then came the voices. Whispers. Not one, not two, many. All around me. Children, adults, wailing, chanting, pleading. A storm of voices circling me like vultures. She won't leave. They sealed her in. Not enough air. We sang to her. She screamed. The flashlight died. I fumbled for a flare, lit it with shaking fingers. The red light bloomed again, and with it, the chamber was no longer empty. Figures, dozens, standing in the walls, as though the stone had swallowed them halfway. Eyes open, mouths closed, all staring at me. In the center, where the bed frame had been, a hole, a shaft, roughly carved, blacker than anything I'd seen. And from that pit, humming, loud now, agonized, broken, Clara's voice. I should have run. I knew that. But something pulled me closer. I dropped to my knees beside the shaft, leaned over, flare extended. Below I saw movement. Small hands on the edge. Then a face, filthy, streaked with tears. Mouth sewn shut with rusted wire. Eyes wide. Clara. She looked straight at me. Behind her, other shapes. Children. Minors. Twisted. Reaching. They began to climb. I scrambled backward. My heart pounded. The flare sputtered. I threw it into the shaft and ran. The tunnels bent around me like a maze. I could hear the scraping, nails on stone, bare feet slapping the floor behind me. The humming never stopped. I don't remember how I got out, only that I collapsed outside the mine, gasping, the trees above swaying though there was no wind. The air was sharp again, real. I looked behind me. The mine was quiet, but I knew something had followed me, something unfinished. In my coat pocket, the photo of Clara was gone. In its place, a small music box, still warm. When I opened it, the tune it played wasn't a lullaby. It was the song. I didn't sleep that night. Back at the motel, I sat on the edge of the bed with the music box ticking softly beside me. Every time I tried to close it, it opened again. Not mechanically, deliberately, like it wanted to be heard. The melody had changed. It wasn't Clara's humming anymore. It was deeper, slower, off-key, like it was decaying in real time. I tried recording it on my phone. The audio came back blank, no sound, just static, and a whisper at the end. She waits. The next morning, I returned to the town's archives. I needed to know what happened in 1962, why a girl named Clara Redmond would be singing alone in a mine sealed for half a century. There was no record of Clara's death, no obituary, no burial. But I found something else. A headline from October 1962. Massive cave-in at Red Hollow Mine, 14 dead, 1 missing. The missing? Clara Redmond, age 11. The story was thin. An accidental detonation, during a company demo. The mine was sealed days later. No rescue attempts. The shaft too unstable. Locals claimed it wasn't worth the risk. But one article stood out, a smaller column, buried in the classifieds. Several town children reportedly heard singing near the mine entrance days after the collapse. Sheriff's office dismissed it as mass hysteria. Mass hysteria. Always convenient. I drove to the last address listed for Clara's family. The house was still there, peeling white paint. Overgrown yard. Abandoned. Inside, dust blanketed everything, except the living room. Someone had been there recently. The carpet had been cleared. On the wall, carved deep into the plaster. I sang until they stopped listening. Below it, a child's handprint, blackened, still damp. I left, fast. Whatever Clara was, she wasn't done singing. That night, I made a decision. I'd return to the mine. Not just to investigate, to end it, somehow. I brought gear, backup lights, a hand recorder, rope, spare batteries, and a new flare. I even carried an old miner's canary cage I found at an antique shop on the way. The bird inside wasn't real, just a toy. But maybe symbolism counted for something. The mine greeted me like an open wound. Inside, nothing had changed. Same chilling silence, same twisting path. But the footprints were gone. Instead, a single trail of black soot led deeper. Not burned, but as if something had bled shadow into the ground. The tunnel felt longer, the air heavier. This time, the singing began earlier. Soft, gentle, coming from every direction at once. I followed it. The shaft was still there, the hole where I'd seen Clara and the others. But now, the pit was sealed. Someone, or something, had covered it with timber and stone, fresh. Not rotted like the rest, as if built recently. Sitting atop the makeshift seal, the music box. I didn't touch it. Clara, I said, voice steadier than I felt. You don't have to sing anymore. No answer. I crouched, placed the canary cage on the stones, and lit a flare beside it. I know they left you. I know they didn't come. But I'm here. I hear you. Still nothing. Then, a whisper. Not a word. A breath. From behind. I turned slowly. She stood there. Clara. But older. As if she'd aged in the dark, not by years, but by pain. Her face pale, eyes hollow, mouth no longer stitched, but bleeding at the corners. Her dress soaked, her hands raw. And she was singing. No melody. Just grief. They promised, she whispered. They said help would come. I didn't know what to say, but I spoke anyway. I'm sorry. She tilted her head, voice hoarse. It's too late for me. Then her gaze drifted to the music box. But not for them. I looked. The box trembled, and from beneath the stones came the sound of scratching. Dozens of hands. I stood back. The seal cracked, then shattered. Figures clawed their way out. Children, minors, people long dead. Their eyes blank, mouths stitched. But they weren't attacking. They were escaping. Clara stepped aside. One by one, they passed her. Some touched her hand. Others whispered inaudible thanks. And with every soul that climbed out, Clara grew dimmer, paler, less real, until only she remained. I stepped closer. What happens now? She looked up at me. Now, I sleep. She reached into her chest, through her ribs, as though they were smoke, and pulled out something small. A locket. She placed it in my palm. It was cold. Inside, a photo. Clara and her parents, smiling. Take me home, she whispered, and then she vanished. No scream, no flash. Just gone. The mine fell silent. No singing, only wind. I reported the collapse as a structural failure. Local authorities filled in the tunnel. No questions asked. Red Hollow went quiet again. I mailed the locket to a surviving cousin I found listed in the archives. No return address. I kept the music box. It hasn't played since. Sometimes, at night, I think I hear the tune in my dreams. But when I wake up, it's gone. Maybe Clara sleeps. Maybe she's still beneath the earth. But one thing's certain. I heard her. And now, I never stop listening.